He walked to the center of the infield. He knelt down. He laid 8 white flowers on his brother's number, made the sign of the cross, and stood back up. No microphone, no speech, no audience needed. Kurt Busch said goodbye to Kyle Busch in 40 seconds, and it may be the single most powerful image from the entire Charlotte weekend. Before Sunday's Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Kurt Busch walked into the infield and placed 8 white flowers directly on the number 8 logo that had been painted into the grass in honor of his younger brother Kyle. He knelt briefly, made the sign of the cross, rose, and then rejoined the family for the pre-race moment of silence. The entire sequence was quiet, personal, and completely unscripted. It was captured on video and has since circulated widely across NASCAR's fan community. Kurt and Kyle Busch are the winningest pair of brothers in NASCAR history. Their combined body of work across Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series competition defined a substantial portion of what American stock car racing looked like for 2 full decades. To understand what Kurt Busch carrying those flowers into the infield actually cost him, you need to understand his last 3 years. In July of 2022, Kurt suffered a significant concussion during a qualifying crash at Pocono. The injury did not heal the way anyone hoped. After months of evaluation and attempting a return, Kurt was forced to step away from full-time competition permanently. He was 44 years old. He had 34 Cup wins. He had a championship, and he had to walk away from the sport he built his life around, not by choice, but because his body would not allow him to continue. That is its own particular kind of grief, the kind that comes from losing something before you feel finished with it. Kurt has been carrying that privately ever since. Outside the competitive environment he spent his entire adult life inside. And now his younger brother, the one who kept racing, who kept winning, who won a Truck Series race just a week before he died, is gone first. That reversal is not a small thing. Older brothers are not supposed to outlast their younger ones. Kurt had already lost his career. Now he has lost Kyle. The Coca-Cola 600 is not an abstract backdrop for this moment. Kurt won this race in 2010 at this track, and now he is standing at the infield of Charlotte Motor Speedway, placing flowers on his brother's number before a race Kyle was registered to run. That is a weight that does not have a simple name. What makes Kurt's gesture stand apart from everything else that happened at Charlotte this weekend is its privacy, and the fact that it wasn't private at all. He did not address a crowd. He did not speak into a microphone. He did not coordinate with NASCAR's broadcast team to make sure the moment was captured. He walked out, did what he came to do, and walked back. The camera caught it because someone was paying attention, not because it was staged for the camera. That distinction matters enormously in how we receive it. The pre-race ceremony with Steve O'Donnell was planned, scripted, and executed with institutional precision. It was moving and it was right. But it was a production. The sport doing what the sport does when it needs to mark something significant for a large audience. Kurt's flowers were none of that. They were a brother doing something for a brother on the infield grass in the middle of one of the loudest sports environments in America, and somehow making it feel completely isolated from all of it. 8 flowers. The number is not accidental. The number 8 was Kyle's number at Richard Childress Racing for his final seasons. It is the number RCR has now reserved in perpetuity for Brexton Busch. It is the number fans were raising fingers for on lap 8 of the race. Kurt chose flowers that matched the count, deliberate, specific, personal. The sign of the cross after laying them down is a moment of religious sincerity that is impossible to manufacture. It tells you where Kurt's head was, not performing grief for a broadcast, but engaging in it privately in the only way he knew how, in a setting that happened to have cameras present. There's also something in the physicality of kneeling worth acknowledging. Kurt Busch spent his entire career in a car that demanded control, hands on the wheel, body braced, posture locked. Kneeling is an act of surrender that stands in direct contrast to everything competition asks of a driver. It is a posture of humility and reverence. Coming from a man who spent decades behind a wheel at 200 miles an hour, it lands with particular force. The brothers had their tensions over the years, competing siblings in the same sport, racing the same events, occasionally in direct conflict. None of that was visible on Sunday. What was visible was a man who lost his little brother doing the quietest possible thing with all of it. The video of Kurt laying the flowers down hit spread faster than almost any other single image from the Charlotte weekend, and the response to it has been remarkably consistent across a fan base that rarely agrees on anything. The comments are not about racing, they are not about championships or wins or what either Busch brother accomplished on a track. They are about a man kneeling in a field and doing something that any sibling who has ever loved another sibling immediately understands. That universality is the reason it landed so hard. You do not need to know NASCAR to feel what Kurt Busch communicated in those 40 seconds. You just need to have someone in your life that you love. Media coverage has largely let the image speak for itself, which is the correct instinct. Overlaying too much analysis on a moment this personal would diminish it. The most common editorial choice has been to run the video with minimal framing and allow viewers to arrive at their own response. It works because the moment does not need help. Inside the NASCAR community, specifically Kurt's gesture has been received as a reminder of what the Busch name actually represents. Not just a competitive brand, not just a statistical legacy, but a family that gave this sport two of its most significant careers and now carries an irreplaceable loss. Kurt Busch becomes a sustained presence in the sport's efforts to honor his brother's legacy. A voice, a mentor, a visible connection between the Busch family and the NASCAR community going forward. He finds a role inside the sport that keeps him close to the garage without the pressure of competition, and he is part of the Hall of Fame induction when it comes. Standing in the room where his brother's name is permanently enshrined, Brexton grows up with his uncle as a guide, and the Busch name's future in NASCAR runs through both of them. Kurt retreats. The grief of losing Kyle, combined with the grief he has already been carrying since his own forced retirement, becomes too heavy to process publicly. He steps back from the NASCAR world entirely, and the family's presence at events becomes rare and then absent. The flowers at Charlotte become the last significant public gesture, a perfect moment that existed once and did not repeat. The sport loses the Busch name from active life faster than anyone expected, and the void left by Kyle's absence is wider than it would have been if Kurt had been able to stay close to it. 8 white flowers. A number painted in the grass, a brother kneeling alone on one of the most watched sports stages in America, and somehow making it feel like the most private thing in the world. Kurt Busch did not need a speech to say what needed saying on Sunday. He said it with his hands and his knees in a few seconds of silence in the middle of all that noise. And the question I want you to answer in the comments is this. In a weekend full of tributes, the decals, the formation, laps, the broadcast silence. The ceremony, was Kurt's moment in the infield the one that hit hardest for you? Or was there something else from Charlotte this weekend that stayed with you longer? Tell me below. And subscribe if you want to be here as this story continues to unfold. NASCAR is not done processing this loss, and neither are we.